Hello, America. This is a story of courage, a tale that begins not with a shout but with a whisper that grows into a roar for justice. Meet Lena Carter, an 18-year-old black girl from Westview, Ohio, whose mind burns brighter than the streetlights of her city. Lena isn't just a student, she's a legal prodigy, a young woman who carries the Constitution like a shield and wields it like a sword. On a June afternoon, standing alone on 77th Street, she became a spark that would ignite a movement for justice, dignity, and unity. Westview's 77th Street is a place of polished perfection. White SUVs line the curbs like soldiers at attention. Every lawn is manicured, every tree trimmed as if saluting the wealth of its residents. In this pristine enclave, a black girl with a heavy backpack stands out like a note played off-key. Lena wasn't loitering. She wasn't scrolling on her phone or blasting music. She stood quietly, reviewing her scholarship exam checklist, clutching a thick gray book, the Constitution and Federal Judiciary. Her braids swayed lightly in the breeze, her eyes focused, unaware that she was about to be targeted. Officer James Harrow stepped out of his patrol car, his gaze locking onto Lena like a computer flagging an error. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of suspicion, sharp enough to make a passing jogger glance over. Lena looked up, her eyes calm, almost unnervingly composed for an 18-year-old questioned in a white suburb. "I'm waiting for the bus." "The stop's 2 blocks away," she replied, her words clear, direct, unapologetic. Harrow nodded, but his eyes said he'd already decided she didn't belong. "Let me see your backpack," he ordered, offering no reason, no rights read. Lena hesitated for a split second, then unstrapped her bag, placed it on the ground, and opened it slowly, compartment by compartment, like someone who knew the law better than the man enforcing it. But Harrow didn't wait. He snatched the bag, flipped it over, and dumped its contents onto the scorching concrete. Notebooks, pens, and her book on the Constitution spilled out, the latter rolling into a puddle, its pages splaying open to the Fifth Amendment. A small plastic bag of white powder slid out from beneath the book's spine, landing neatly in plain view. Harrow's lips curled into a smirk. "What's this? Hiding drugs in your law book? Creative." He held the bag up for his patrol car's camera, his voice dripping with mock surprise. Lena said nothing. She bent down, picked up her book, smoothed its cover, and looked directly into his body camera. "Fifth Amendment," she said clearly. "I invoke my right to remain silent." A man on a bicycle stopped, pulling out his phone to record. "Getting arrested for reading," he muttered, disbelief lacing his voice. Harrow spun toward him, snarling, "Mind your business." But the camera kept rolling, its light glinting off Harrow's sunglasses. Lena stood still, not resisting, not pleading, her voice low but steady. "What time did you stop me?" she asked, a simple question that hung in the air like a challenge. Harrow ignored her, yanking her arm behind her back and cuffing her with cold metal restraints. "Sit down," he barked, shoving her toward the hood of his car. Her forehead grazed the hot metal, but Lena didn't flinch. Blue ink from her scholarship essay, on constitutional protections in biased systems, smeared from her hand onto the hood, spreading like a wound. The essay itself, swept away by the wind, fluttered over the gutter, a silent witness to the injustice unfolding. A small crowd gathered, phones out, recording. "Move along." Harrow shouted, but they didn't. A woman whispered to her daughter, "Sometimes being right doesn't save you." Backup arrived. A second officer glanced at Lena, then at the white powder Harrow stuffed into a Ziploc. "Drugs, intentional possession," Harrow said flatly. The officer nodded, no questions asked. Lena was shoved into the cruiser, her head bumping the roof, but her lips stayed sealed, no cry, no protest. The man filming captioned his live stream, "Arrested for holding the wrong book in the wrong place." Within an hour, the video had 25,000 views. In the cruiser, Lena didn't panic. She recited the Constitution in her head, clause by clause, either to steady herself or to prepare. She knew this wasn't a mistake. The white powder, the smirks, Harrow's final words before slamming her head into the hood, "You don't belong here," told her this was a script, a trap set for a girl like her. But Lena Carter wasn't just any girl. She was a spark, and sparks don't die quietly. They ignite. Lena Carter wasn't born into a house of fairy tales. No bedtime stories of princesses or dragons filled her childhood. Instead, her walls were lined with case law, printed from an old desktop printer, edges trimmed precisely, taped up like sacred texts. Her father, Captain Marcus Carter, a former military legal officer, didn't teach her lullabies. He taught her survival through law. "Study it not to win," he'd say, his voice warm like polished oak, "but to stand upright when the world tries to bend you." Marcus died when Lena was 12, in an accident during an investigation into police corruption. No witnesses, no footage, just a report claiming he slipped in an evidence room. Lena knew better. Men like her father didn't slip. Her mother, Clara, a librarian at Westview's East Side Public Library, carried on his legacy. She didn't read Lena mermaid tales but taught her to distinguish precedent from assumption. "The law isn't something to fear," Clara would say, her eyes steady over a kitchen table cluttered with case files. "It's something to face." Their home was a fortress of knowledge, not comfort. The dining table held no flowers, only a wooden shelf of closed cases, underlined in blue ink. A faded Fourth Amendment print hung by the window, its corners curling like a battle-worn flag. A neighborhood map marked with red ink showed areas known for baseless arrests. This was Lena's inheritance, not wealth, but dignity forged through intellect. At 13, Lena found a USB drive hidden in her father's copy of the Federal Procedure Handbook, its spine torn. She didn't open it immediately, holding it to her chest, afraid of truths too heavy for a child's heart. When she did, it revealed Marcus's notes on a case linking police misconduct to military budget fraud. Names like James Harrow appeared, circled in red. Lena didn't cry. She studied, reading case files until dawn, her desk lamp casting shadows over her braids. She memorized constitutional clauses, studied procedural errors, and prepared for a world that trained her to obey before she could say no. Lena's defiance began early. At 15, she wrote a protest letter to her school board when her history grade was lowered for argumentative behavior. She challenged textbook claims that slavery was a side effect of economic growth, citing Brown versus Board of Education. She didn't shout, she submitted a 3-page essay with academic references, framed by legal precedent. Her grade was reinstated, the teacher reassigned. Her name appeared in an internal memo, "Knows the law than her teachers." But truth didn't always bring fairness. Clara was once suspended from her library for opposing the removal of books on racial injustice, accused of inciting tension. That taught Lena that freedom of speech often came with a price. In her room, no posters adorned the walls, only a whiteboard with a permanent marker scrawl, "I am the law, born into a body they deny." Below were lists of cases, clauses, and police errors. Lena studied law the way others breathed, not for joy but for necessity. No one in Westview knew the girl with braids read her father's files until her tears dried, or that she'd taught herself to exist in a world where obedience was demanded before understanding. She wasn't preparing to fight. She was preparing to survive, to honor her parents' legacy of resistance through knowledge, not rage. Westview's police station felt like a storage room for unchecked power, its low ceilings and frosted glass walls closing in. Lena sat in the interrogation room, hands cuffed, her posture straight as a legal brief. James Harrow leaned across the table, his badge gleaming, voice raspy like gravel. "Think you're a lawyer, huh?" he taunted, flipping open a detention report. Lena raised her head, her gaze unflinching. "The second officer didn't read Miranda," she said, her words slicing through his bravado. The room paused, a young officer shifting uneasily, silenced by Harrow's glare. Harrow grabbed a marker, drawing a crude map on the whiteboard, a circle for Lena, a rectangle for the bus stop. "You were here when I approached," he said, his sketch sloppy, streets misaligned. Lena didn't look at it. She tilted her cuffed wrist, showing her watch's GPS timestamp, 1:45 p.m. "The bus stops west," she said calmly. "Your map points east." "It's wrong." A crack appeared in Harrow's composure, not from her correction but from her certainty, as if she were her right. Behind the glass, Sarah, a new staffer, clutched her notebook, lips pressed. She'd transferred to Westview weeks ago, knowing right from wrong but lacking the courage to speak. Lena's calm rattled her, a reminder that silence often shielded the guilty. Harrow slammed the report open, pointing to the arrest time, 14:17. Lena extended her wrist again, the watch reading 01:35 to 45. "That's a discrepancy," she said, her voice a lesson. "No evidence, no crime." Harrow muttered, "Systems fail," his tone a mix of defiance and desperation. Lena repeated, "No evidence, no crime," each word a hammer on the fragile logic he'd built. A faint click sounded from the hallway, an internal camera still running, capturing Harrow's earlier words, "This needs to be taught a lesson." He thought it was untouchable, but the system he trusted was beginning to betray him. Lena's gaze didn't falter, peeling back lies cloaked in authority. She saw through his uniform, not as a badge of honor but a disguise for control. The interrogation ended abruptly. No statement, no warrant, just a man's attempt to silence a girl who knew too much. Lena was led to a holding cell, but she didn't panic. She sat by the window, the late afternoon light casting shadows over Westview like a city half asleep, complicit in its own decay. She didn't call for a lawyer or ask the time. She simply looked out, her mind mapping every procedural flaw, every misstep, ready to turn this cell into a courtroom where truth, not power, would prevail. Courtroom 4 of Westview City Hall was modest, its oak benches polished by decades of routine verdicts. Lena Carter stood alone at the defense table, a 19-year-old black girl facing a drug charge that reeked of fabrication. Thad Judge Robert Callahan, a veteran with a voice like worn gravel, leaned over his bench, smirking as Lena requested to represent herself. "Who does this girl think she is?" "Ruth Bader Ginsburg," he quipped, drawing laughter from the gallery. The crowd's chuckles faded as Lena opened her thin folder, her voice clear and unwavering, like a bell tolling for justice. "I waive court-appointed counsel," she declared, sliding a handwritten petition across the table. "Under Gideon v. Wainwright, 372 U.S. 335, 1963, I claim my constitutional right to self-representation." The room fell silent for 3 seconds. The court-appointed attorney, a middle-aged white man in a rumpled suit, lowered his glasses, muttering, "Never seen a kid do that." In the back, Henry Brooks, a retired lawyer, leaned to his neighbor, "She's not playing." Lena didn't pause. "I was detained without Miranda rights read. The arrest report lists an incorrect time. Hallway camera footage shows Officer Harrow violating conduct standards. And the crime scene diagram is falsified." Her words were steady, drove nails into the prosecution's case, each point cracking their narrative. She held up a photocopy of the police's map, then a satellite image. "The report says 4th and Main. The scene was at 77th and Grant, 50 meters apart. This isn't error, it's misconduct." The prosecutor shifted, but said nothing. Harrow's hands clenched, his jaw tight. Lena continued, "The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches. Fifth Amendment shields self-incrimination. Sixth ensures a public trial." She didn't glance at notes, every clause was etched in her memory. The gallery stirred, phones recording, whispers spreading. A legal blog tweeted, "Black girl makes cop go silent." Callahan leaned forward, tapping his pen. "Young lady, is this a courtroom or a schoolroom?" His tone dripped condescension, but no one laughed. Lena met his gaze, her voice honed like a blade. I don't think, I know. The clerk stopped typing, the air thick with tension. Henry Brooks gripped his pen, scribbling notes, his hand trembling with awe. Lena's words weren't just arguments, they were a declaration of dignity, forcing the system to see her not as a defendant, but as a citizen. As she was led back to her cell, the video of her speech spread online, wildfire fast, amassing millions of views. Hashtag Justice for Lena trended, a spark igniting hope. Lena didn't seek fame. She sought truth, a truth that would hold the law accountable, not just for her, but for every soul the system dared to erase. Lena Carter sat in her mother's study, the old USB drive from her father Marcus glowing faintly in her laptop's port. Its files revealed a decade-old military hearing where Marcus exposed corruption in Westview's police, naming James Harrow as a key figure in evidence tampering. Lena's pulse quickened, but her resolve hardened. She wasn't just a girl avenging her father, she was a daughter of justice, unearthing truths buried under lies. That night, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Want to end like your dad? No trace, just 7 words that vanished in seconds. Lena didn't flinch. She saved a screenshot, her fingers steady, knowing threats meant she was close. She opened her laptop, cross-referencing Marcus's notes with Harrow's arrest logs. 5 cases, all young black teens, showed discrepancies, missing footage, altered reports, no witnesses. Harrow wasn't careless, he was calculated. Westview's east side stirred. A high school group, led by Lena's friend Isha, shared her courtroom video, captioned, "She's fighting for us." Within days, thousands reposted, their stories flooding comments, wrongful stops, coerced confessions, silenced voices. A bodega owner hung a sign, "We stand with Lena." No protests, no rallies, just a quiet unity swelling, a community finding its voice through her courage. Lena met Isha at a corner library, slipping her a USB of Marcus's files. "This isn't about me," Lena said, her eyes fierce. "It's about the next kid they stop." Isha nodded, uploading the data to a secure server. By morning, a Reddit thread exploded, "Westview teen exposes cop cover-up." The post linked to Marcus's notes, Harrow's name circled in digital red. Lena didn't read the comments, she didn't need validation. She was building a case, not a following. At home, Clara noticed their security cameras had blanked out during Lena's arrest window, erased, like her father's legacy. But Marcus had taught Lena about backups. She accessed a hidden log, finding the footage, Harrow cuffing her, the powder sliding out, her book hitting the ground. Every frame screamed truth. A quiet classmate, Zion Lee, slipped Lena another USB at school. "School cameras caught them tampering," he whispered. "They tried to erase it, but I recovered this." A chat log, "Handle that girl." Sent from a precinct IP. Lena's eyes burned brighter. This wasn't a mistake, it was a conspiracy. She didn't cry or shout. She printed the log, her hands steady, ready to drag the truth into the light. The community's support grew, from shopkeepers to students, united not by anger, but by belief that one girl's voice could make justice shine for all. Westview's courtroom buzzed with an uneasy quiet as Lena Carter stepped to the witness stand, her folder heavier with truth. The air was electric, charged with the weight of a system facing its own reflection. No one expected what came next, not from a protester, not a lawyer, but from Officer Michael Evans, Harrow's friend of 15 years. He took the stand, his uniform badge removed, eyes steady but haunted. "I'm not here to save anyone," he said, voice low. "I'm here to stop what I once ignored." Evans looked at Harrow, who sat rigid, knuckles white. "I saw him fake an arrest report," Evans said. "A black kid, stopped for wearing a jacket." Harrow said, "They're born to be filed." I laughed. I was wrong. The room froze, the gallery silent. Evans's words weren't just testimony, they were a crack in the blue wall of loyalty, exposing a system that thrived on complicity. A Twitter clip spread, "Cop betrays cop for Lena's truth." Lena opened her folder, revealing Marcus's files. "These documents," she said, holding up a yellowed fax, "show Officer Harrow signed off on tampered evidence in my father's case, 8 years ago." Her voice didn't rise, but each word was a strike, linking Harrow to 5 other wrongful arrests, all black teens, all erased. The prosecutor's face paled, Harrow's hands shook. Lena held up a chart, mapping timestamps, deleted logs, and falsified maps. "Every lie points to you," she said, eyes on Harrow. The gallery erupted in whispers, phones live streaming. #Justice for Lena soared, joined by #Truth Unveiled. Westview's community rallied, students posted flyers, shop owners displayed legal guides, a diner hung a sign, "We see." No riots, just a unified demand for accountability. Lena's voice wasn't vengeance, it was prevention, a shield for the next child caught in the system's grip. Evans stepped down, meeting Lena's gaze, not for forgiveness, but acknowledgement. She nodded, a silent recognition of his courage to break ranks. The system shifted, not from collapse, but from betrayal within, a reminder that justice begins when even one person chooses truth over silence. Lena Carter stood on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, a 19-year-old black girl from Westview, Ohio, with no escort, no fanfare, just a thick folder slung over her shoulder. Her white shirt was crisp, her hair braided tightly, her gaze steady as she entered the Senate Judiciary Committee chamber. The topic was legalistic, youth legal rights and self-representation limits, but Lena's presence turned it into a national reckoning. She wasn't here to plead, she was here to demand justice for every child the system ignored. The chamber was quiet, senators' eyes fixed on Lena as she opened her folder. "I don't represent anyone," she began, her voice clear, unyielding. "I'm the result of what you chose not to document." She held up a handwritten statement from a teen coerced into signing a false confession, her words slicing through the room's formality. "When a child is arrested without a lawyer, without understanding their rights, is that justice?" No one answered. Lena flipped to a second sheet. In 13 states, minors can't refuse court-appointed counsel, even if unqualified. In 20, self-representation is denied to those under 16, despite their knowledge. In all 50, no clear law ensures kids understand detention's consequences. A female senator's pen hovered, unmoving. Lena's gaze swept the committee. "I'm not asking for new laws. I'm asking you to reread the ones we have, not for me, I've saved myself, but for the kids with no microphone." Outside, Westview's high schools buzzed. Students demanded civics classes teach Miranda rights, posting flyers, "We know our rights." A 15-year-old boy spoke at a city council meeting, quoting Lena, "The Constitution protects those who use it." His words, paired with Lena's Capitol photo, went viral, sparking a youth movement for legal literacy. A senator leaned back, murmuring, "We need to listen to voices like hers." Lena didn't seek applause. She closed her folder, gave a slight bow, and left the stand, her words echoing like a challenge to a system that had long silenced the powerless. Her testimony wasn't just a speech, it was a call for unity, a reminder that justice begins when the young dare to speak. Westview's courtroom was no longer a stage for routine verdicts, it was a battleground where truth dismantled lies. James Harrow sat at the defendant's table, alone, no badge, no allies, charged with civil rights violations, evidence tampering, and perjury. Lena Carter, now 19, sat on the plaintiff's side, her folder open, her presence a living indictment. The gallery was packed, phones live streaming, the air taut with anticipation. Lena's lawyer stepped forward, voice sharp. "Mr. Harrow, do you recognize your voice in this video?" A screen played the arrest footage, Harrow snarling, "You don't belong here," cuffs clicking, Lena's book hitting the ground. Harrow stared at the table, silent. The lawyer pressed, "You mocked a girl for knowing the law. Now she's here, protected by it." He presented altered reports, deleted camera logs, and a leaked message from Harrow, "Break that girl." Each piece was a nail in Harrow's coffin. The community roared online. Hashtag Justice for Lena merged with hashtag System Exposed, Westview's East Side erupting in quiet defiance, store signs reading, "We see," legal guides in barbershops, students chanting, "No more silence." Lena unveiled Marcus's final file, a dossier linking Harrow to a corruption network within Westview's police. "This isn't about me," she said, voice steady. "It's about stopping you from hurting others." Harrow's face drained, his hands trembled. The prosecutor's lies crumbled, the judge's pen stilled. A retired journalist tweeted, "Lena didn't accuse, she convicted." The system didn't just crack, it collapsed under the weight of its own deceit, exposed by a girl who refused to be erased. Westview united, teachers, workers, elders, demanding accountability, not for revenge, but for the dignity of those Harrow had wronged. Lena Carter didn't chase glory. When Harvard offered a full scholarship, she stood at a press conference, holding the letter high, then folded it into a donation box for a youth legal aid group. "I'm not rejecting Harvard," she said, her black braids gleaming under the lights. "I'm postponing. School can wait, justice cannot." The room fell silent, a reporter whispering, "She turned a scholarship into a question of ethics." At 20, Lena opened a legal aid office in an old bookstore in Westview's East Side, its cracked walls a testament to resilience. No sign, just a chalkboard, "This is a classroom for truth." She taught kids their rights, how to invoke silence, demand a lawyer, read a warrant, arming them with knowledge, not anger. A 14-year-old girl, once detained for loitering, wrote her first appeal with Lena's help. A father, arrested falsely, learned to face his accusers. Lena didn't seek followers, they found her, seeking dignity. Westview's movement grew. Hashtag We See More spread, forcing police to wear body cams, schools to teach constitutional rights. A mural rose on 77th Street's corner bench, where Lena was cuffed, painted bold, "We stand." A letter arrived from an anonymous veteran, "You kept Marcus's promise." Lena smiled, tucking it away, her focus on the next case, the next child. Lena's light didn't dim, it spread, a beacon of unity, showing that justice isn't won by one, but by a community daring to see, to know, to act. Lena Carter's story isn't just a moment, it's a movement, a living flame passed from Westview to the nation. At 20, she stood as the youngest member of Westview's Youth Legal Aid, her office a sanctuary where the silenced found their strength. Each morning, someone knocked, a teen confused by a stop-and search, a mother coerced into a false plea, a boy expelled for questioning an officer's command. Lena listened, taught, and empowered, her voice steady, her mission clear, to ensure no one felt powerless again. Her classroom wasn't just walls and books, it was a revolution. A 16-year-old boy, once arrested for suspicious behavior, learned to file a complaint, his school now teaching Miranda rights because of him. A grandmother, whose son was dismissed as a problem, held Lena's hand as she explained her case, reclaiming her dignity. Westview changed, body cams became mandatory, arrest logs were public, and schools formed oversight groups, students demanding their rights be taught, not assumed. Lena's impact reached beyond Ohio. Her Capitol speech inspired a national curriculum pilot, 3 high schools teaching constitutional self-defense. A 10-year-old in a Bronx bakery asked, "Did Lena save people because she wasn't afraid?" His mother nodded, unaware their video sparked hashtag Teach Like Lena, trending with stories of kids learning their rights. Westview's gray zone glowed with signs, "We know, we stand," on storefronts, benches, hearts painted where cuffs once locked. Lena didn't rest. She worked late, correcting forms, mentoring youth, her desk lamp a lighthouse in the dark. A faded letter from her father, Marcus, sat nearby. If I fall, let her light the way. She honored it, not with tears but with action, ensuring his legacy lived in every child she taught. A mural on 77th Street read, "She didn't scream, she made us hear." To America, Lena's story is a call to action. Don't let injustice hide in silence. Ask questions, record, share, stand together. Justice isn't a gift, it's a fight, won by those who refuse to bow. Thank you for listening. Now, speak up. Share your story, your moment, your truth. Every word you leave, every step you take, keeps this flame alive. Let's not end here, let's make justice a legacy for all.